My name is Nick Thacker. I am an action-adventure thriller author. What we're going to get into today is a little bit of two things. We are going to talk about thrillers in general. What is the genre? What does it mean to be a thriller, and how do you write them? And how do you sell them? Because I have a feeling that that's why most of us are here, is how do we do better at what we are already doing? Or how do we do different things to get better? I've asked the panelists here to, if they're able to answer any question that I give them or you give them in a way that, as much as possible, is practical, is pragmatic, something that you can implement, something that you don't have to. It's not a philosophical answer in that sense. I'm hoping that we can get some actual actionable advice into your brains today. That's the goal. I'm also hoping that we can burn through all the things that I've written down and want to ask them and get to questions that you have. So if you do have questions, write them down, hold them to the end. I promise I'll give you time to ask any questions that you have. So without further ado, you don't need to hear any more from me. I'm going to just hand it off to Mike here, and we'll go down the line. Can you just tell us who you are, what you write, how long you've been doing it, and anything else that you think we might like to hear?
My name is Mike Bray. I'm with Wolfpack Publishing. I am not an author, however. I'm a publisher. Wolfpack is an 8-year-old company modeled after traditional publishers. We are hybrid, meaning that we go off the POD on our paperback. Other than that, we're just like a traditional publisher. Seldom pay reviews or pay advances, however.
Hi, I'm Mark Dawson. So I do lots of things, really. I write novels, I write thrillers, my Milton series, and Beatrix and Isabella and Atticus. I founded SPF, Self-Publishing Formula, and I've already had lots of people saying that they've taken the courses, which is always lovely to hear. Thank you. And James Blatch and I have a podcast on Fridays. James is around somewhere, so please take the piss out of him as much as you like. He loves it. And we're going to be talking tomorrow about something else that we do. We have a little publisher called Fuse Books, and we take the things that we do with SPF, and we've published 3 authors and have resurrected their sales as well, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. But looking forward to talking about craft this morning.
Good morning. I am Diane Capri. I write mystery, thriller, suspense. Second question was, how long have we been doing this, I guess? Like forever, Just seems like forever. But I've been indie since 2011, so long time in the indie world.
Between thrillers and action adventure there is no line anymore. We on our thrillers, we got a bunch of older dead guys, Harold Robbins type people. Our modern action adventure guys are actually outselling those old thriller writers, but those lines they blended.
Yeah, I find these questions really hard to answer, actually. So Nick sent me over the questions this morning, and I thought, I don't know what the hell I'm going to answer these. In terms of, for me personally, when I'm writing, so the Milton series is the one I'm best known for. For me, a thriller it's about him. It's about his character. And these answers, I think they're kind of agnostic. They apply to all kinds of books and all kinds of writing. But for me, there's 20 books in the Milton series now, and I have readers who email me quite regularly saying, especially last year with lockdown, that they started the first book when they were laid off from work in March, and then by the end of June they'd read all 20. So of course I'm very happy to hear that, because it means I've made a good sale there with 20 books being sold. But I think the reason people do that, and they feel that they are able to enjoy those books, is because they can see Milton's character and how he develops over time. So I try to make him realistic. I try to give him the foibles and flaws that people can relate to. And then with that kind of realistic character, I'm able to drop him into different situations that are interesting to me as a writer. So I might have read something in the news about Afghanistan, for example. I'll put Milton into a situation, and then kind of, my solution to plot problems and plot solving is, what would Milton do? It's usually, lots of violent stuff. But anyway, and he kind of solves problems in ways that other people can't. So I think there's a bit of kind of escapism in the same way that Reacher, I mean, Diane is an expert on Reacher. I mean, in the same way that what would Reacher do? He would go in and he would fix problems in a way that normal people would not feel comfortable doing. And so there's a bit of wish fulfillment and escapism in there. And I think that's really important for a really unputdownable, page-turning thriller.
Okay, so I write several series, and probably best known for my Hunt for Jack Reacher series, which is a spin-off of my friend Lee Child's Jack Reacher novels. And when we started, those novels were very clearly thrillers. And now I think there's been a lot of genre bending, and there's a lot of what I call category pollution. And I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because to me, the idea is to give the reader what they're looking for. And I think it's harder for readers to find us now because they don't know where to look. And because there's been so much genre bending going on, mostly because of us indies. You know, we pretty much write what we want. And that's a wonderful thing for a writer. But then when it's time for the reader to find the book, it's kind of hard for them to know where to look. But I have seen, like Mike said, I've seen quite a bit of a blurring of the lines between thriller and action adventure. Years ago, I was on the inaugural board for International Thriller Writers, and we tried to define what a thriller was back then, and it was very difficult, and we came up with one thing, and the answer was, if it's going to be a thriller, it has to be thrilling. Okay, now I know that sounds obvious, right? But it means it's got to have a fast pace. It's got to be a page turner. It's got to be exciting. People have to be on the edge of their seat about it. The thing, I was just talking to my friend this morning about this, the thing that happens to me all the time, and I'm sure everybody up here, it takes me months to write a book, and then I get letters from readers that say, oh, I loved that book, I read it in a few hours. And my response is, read it again. You know? Because it takes me forever, but that's what I'm going for. I want them to keep turning those pages. So to me, that's what a thriller is.
Absolutely.
An action-adventure novel can be like that too, but when Indiana Jones is in the pit of snakes, it takes him a while to get out of there, right? So it's not like quick. That's part of the fun of it. He's trying to outwit those snakes. So anyway, to me, that's what a thriller is. It's a thrilling story. It's fast-paced. It's interesting. It keeps the reader up all night. That's my issue.
That's great. I think what you're getting into is that a thriller has a tone to it, and I often say that that's what a thriller is. Now that's a very kind of vague term. When I write, this is my opinion. I write mysteries and thrillers, and the mystery is where we don't know who the bad guy is at the beginning of the book, and a thriller is we do know who the bad guy is at the beginning of the book, and the good guys are running from the bad guys at the beginning of the book. And so, again, there's a lot of crossover now.
Can I just add to that? We used to say a thriller was a good guy, a bad guy, and a ticking clock. And I think that's still pretty much the basic definition.
I love that. I think that's great, yeah. I love that. You got into this a little bit, Diane, but I want to give the other two gentlemen here a chance to answer. You talked a little bit about tropes and reader expectations. Are there any others in the thriller genre? What do readers expect when they pick up a thriller?
I'm going to be honest. Most of our thrillers are picked up without even reading the book. Pick them up based on the author and the author's following. And again, we blend the men's adventure, action adventure, and thrillers all together.
The guy in the previous panel said that anything with Tom Clancy's name on it sells, and so my question was, is that a marketing tactic? Can we just put Tom Clancy on the cover of our novels and then we'll sell any books? I don't know if that you're the lawyer, you probably know.
Sorry, used to be a lawyer. I'm going to say
used
no.
to be a lawyer, thank you, yeah.
Not a good idea. I like that ticking clock thing. With me, a couple of examples. I've got Beatrix Rose, without no spoilers here, she has cancer at the start of the trilogy, and that's her ticking clock. She has a certain list of things that she wants to achieve before she's unable to achieve them. So and the readers they see that, and it kind of imbues it with a sense of momentum and pace, and something that she won't be able to escape. And what I'm writing at the moment is another really, really good ticking clock. It's a book set around the Chernobyl disaster in '86. So the ticking clock there is the fact that the readers know this nuclear reactor is going to explode, and so when I'm writing this, it's kind of each part is like 7 days before the explosion. There's no hiding the fact that it's going to explode, because everyone knows that. So day 6, day 5, day 4, day 3, 2, 1, and it just lends it a real sense of propulsion that hopefully, if I do the job correctly, will mean that the readers will find it's very difficult to put the book down once they start it.
Thank you. Diane, did you want to add anything to that? Tropes, reader
Well,
expectations?
the only thing I would say as a writer, this is a room full of writers, right? Okay, so as a writer, that ticking clock thing can really come back to bite you, you know? You have to, I actually keep a spreadsheet as I'm writing, and I put the time in it, and the day, and the location. And I write multiple POV stories, so, you know, if it's 12 o'clock and it's, you know, Joe, then where is Fred? You know, and so I have to have a place for Fred, and I am actually outlining out each and every minute in this story. And sometimes readers will write to me, like I had one in the book recently. Reader wrote back to me and he said, "Do lawyers work on Sunday? Because you've got this." And sure enough, we had changed the timeline later, and it was supposed to be Friday, and you know. But I said, Mark and I are lawyers. I said, yes, lawyers work on Sunday.
That's why I'm not a lawyer anymore.
That's awesome. Oh, let's move a little bit into some of the marketing things. We've talked about how to write these things called thrillers. Selling them is one big reason why we're all here. With thrillers, what do you think is unique, if anything, about selling thrillers as opposed to other genres that are out there? That I know all of us have written, all of us have published or written different novels besides thrillers. Is there anything unique about thrillers? Dan, let's start on your end.
Okay, so Nick sent us these questions like an hour ago.
I gave them plenty of time to craft wonderful, poignant responses, and if you don't get them from them, that's not on me.
Yeah, right. You know, is there anything unique about marketing thrillers? I write mystery, thriller, and suspense. I honestly can say I think they're all sort of equally difficult to market. I think you know, you have to reach your readers, so you have to know something about your books, and you have to know something about your reader. And then my thing, and you've probably heard me say this before, I like to fish where the fish are. Okay, so I figure out who my readers are, and I figure out where they are, and then I go there, whatever that is. So if it's a book club, I think Mike was talking about a book club earlier. If it's a book club, if it's a group on Facebook, if it's a particular retailer, like my books are wide. So if I know that there's a lot of readers at, say, Apple, then I go there. So I think that's a little bit, you know, of the challenge, is just trying to find out where the readers are. And then all I can do is just make it available to them, and you know, hopefully they'll notice. But it's a very crowded marketplace, and I think it's hard to get noticed. That's the tough thing.
So I sell thrillers and action adventure books, but because what we do with SPF, I see lots of different genres, and I don't think there is that much difference in terms of the things that we do to sell books. I think they're fairly universal. So and they're very boring. So I'm sorry to kind of reiterate them, but it is things like professional product that applies if you're writing romances, dinosaur porn if you're Craig Martelle, thrillers, whatever. It's mailing list. It's advertising. Those are the things that it's inescapable now. That those are the things that we need to do to cut through the noise and find the readers. And you know, as Diane says, absolutely right. You've got to know where your readers are, and then you've got to craft your product. That's another thing. You need to know when you need to switch off the art, or switch off the artist and become the marketer. So I write in the morning, I'm an artist in the morning, and then I'm pitching ASINs and widgets in the afternoon. And you need to be able to have that mental capacity to realize that you need to make that switch and not to be attached to your art, because at that point you're then a salesman or a salesperson. So you need to know when to be able to do that.
We don't market our thrillers any different than we do westerns or men's adventure. The biggest tool in our tool belt is our mailing list. Generic mailing list, we've got 45,000 people with an open rate of about 26%. However, we also, for our bigger authors, maintain individual mailing lists, and we hit 40% opens on those. We're heavy in pay-per-click advertising, Amazon and Facebook. But probably the number one factor behind the success with our thrillers is we seldom do standalones. They're all series, and the next release is selling the whole series for us again. And we have some series that are 15, 20 books long.
That's great. I know we mentioned ads a lot. We mentioned email, mailing lists. I know all four of us do dabble in those. I would say, Mark, you do a little bit in ads, Facebook ads and things like that. Besides ads, besides mailing lists, and I'm excluding those only because they're the obvious ones that I think we all know about. Are there any tactics that you have found lately that are working well? Are you finding that TikTok is working well for your books? Are you finding that there's any particular thing that works well to find readers for your books? And anyone can answer that first. We don't have to go in line.
No, we're always looking for different platforms to advertise on. We're on every social media platform out there. We've tried Google ads that didn't work. You figured that out?
That's a tricky one, yeah.
Yeah, but it's take his class and you'll know exactly what we're doing.
So, I mean, TikTok, that's a good example. I am seeing TikTok working very well for authors in some genres. I don't think, personally, and I'd love to be proven wrong, I'm not convinced that it'll work for thrillers, because the kind of the TikTok videos that I see go viral tend to be kind of humorous. A lot of romance authors are doing really, really well on TikTok, and they're able to show their personality in a way that I don't think would work quite as well for thrillers. And it's not something that I can see myself doing. So, but we have a TikTok module coming to the ads course, which will be ready in January, which with a couple of authors, I think actually might be here this week, and we're quite excited about that. Just as a general point, so kind of beyond focusing on specific platforms, I think as a kind of just a point of best practice, and I've said this for ages, it's to answer all the emails that you get. It's to, respond to comments, at least indicate that you've seen something that someone has taken the time to write. So even on a Facebook ad, for example, and I run hundreds of dollars of Facebook ads every day, I'll try and at least like the comments that people have left, because I think thinking back to when I was growing up, and I used to love Bray and Ellis and writers like that, Martin Amis. If I had written to them, it would have been pen and ink in those days, but if I'd gotten some kind of indication that they'd read what I'd sent them, it would have made me very happy and probably would have solidified me even more as a reader of those writers. So I think that those kinds of small things can really, over time, can aggregate into something that can become quite powerful.
So I agree with these guys, but just to mention some things that haven't been mentioned exactly so far. One is reader engagement. It's kind of what Mark is talking about, but I try to engage with my readers as much as I can. When I send out my newsletter, I encourage them to respond to me. I ask them questions. When they write to me, I write back. I do giveaways. I run polls. Anything that gets them to sort of be my friend, because I want to cement that relationship. So reader engagement. Second thing, fishing where the fish are, I suggest that if you can, you do all the formats for your books. So not just ebooks, but also paperbacks, also hardcovers, also large print, also audio. Everybody likes to consume their fiction in different ways, and some people really love ebooks. My mom is 85 years old. She loves ebooks. She reads them on her iPad, and she can make the font bigger, and she really likes that. Every day somebody says to me, but do you have real books? I like to hold a book in my hand. I want real books. So of course you want to have print. Some people are hardcover collectors. Libraries like hardcovers. Some people are visually impaired. They want large print. So to the extent that you can make your product reach readers who prefer to read in various formats, that really helps too, in addition to other things that were said.
Thank you. In the time that you've either been writing, publishing thrillers, I know we've talked about you mentioned a little bit of this, Diane, early on. How have you seen the genre change over time? And this could be, you can answer this in terms of marketing thrillers or in terms of just how they're written and consumed. Have you noticed any difference since when you first started? Hey, go ahead, Mike.
I started in 2010, competing against 1.5 million books. Now we're competing against 8+ million English language books. So it's changed a lot.
I think the actual thriller itself hasn't necessarily evolved particularly. I think the similar kinds of themes and tropes were popular in the 30s and 40s. And I've done lots of, my first independently published book was set in London during the Blitz in 1940. So I read lots and lots of contemporaneous books from that period. And you see the same patterns and the same trends in those books as you see today. So, it's storytelling. I mean, I don't think stories have evolved that much since we were telling each other them around campfires. So I think it's a fairly universal and standard thing that maybe changes a little bit, but not fundamentally.
I think one thing that's changed a lot in thrillers is technology. Even if you're not writing techno thrillers, if you're writing present day stories, which thrillers tend to be present day, they can be historical, but most of them, I think, are present day. And technology has changed things considerably. It's kind of sort of not believable that your hero wouldn't have a cell phone, for example, And in my books, my characters are being watched all the time. And, readers, sometimes they don't believe the things that I write. So that's kind of hard. Like I had a scene where Reacher's hitchhiking, this woman picks him up and I can hear the conversation inside the car. And so beta readers said to me, you can't do that. Nobody can hear what's going on inside the car. Well, you know what, they can. So, but I'm not going to say that to her, but because what she's telling me is it's not believable. So sometimes you have to worry about the tech. You can get ahead of it, you can get behind it, but it's there. And I think for thrillers, you have to deal with it. And I don't think there's any way around that. So that, I think, is different from, the old-timey Dashiell Hammett and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I've had that. With the Chernobyl book, there are no cell phones. So if I need a character to make contact with another one on short notice, I've got to go find a payphone. And this is in Pripyat in Russia. So there's lots of things like you have to research. And then if you're writing, my Atticus series is not so much a thriller, it's more of a police procedural. And it's really difficult to write mysteries when there are CCTV cameras everywhere and everyone's got a cell phone. So to try and think of ways that I wouldn't want to be a criminal these days, basically, because I think you're going to get caught really, really easily. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, it would have been a little easier to evade detection. But these days, you've got to think about that.
I'm glad you mentioned the technology, Diane and Mark, because I remember when I have a cabinet novel, one I've never published. Because when I first wrote it, it was like this Dan Brown puzzle adventure. The main character's trying to get to his love interest at the end because the bad guy, the ticking time bomb, is the bad guy's descending on her and he's going to kill her. And it's just amazing. You solve all these puzzles the whole way, and it was phenomenal. And I sent it to a reader, and they said, "Well, why didn't you just call her?" So now it's an EMP post-apocalyptic book, and all the cell phones are dead. So, but I don't know if I'll ever publish it. Last question for you, panel. This is more just personal interest. What, besides thrillers, if you had to start publishing or writing particular books?
Romance.
You stole mine.
Ditto.
You stole mine. Why romance? Why is that?
That's where the money is.
It's where the money is.
Yeah, I think is a bit of a flippant answer. It's not easy to write good romance that sells, but it's fairly well established now that that's where the most voracious readers live in terms of reading a book a day, and things like KU make it very easy to make quite a lot of money quite quickly if you're able to get it right. And obviously you've got to write great books, that goes without saying. But I think if I was starting and I... Although saying that, you know what, I've tried, the one time I've ever had problems writing, and this was after I was traditionally published, back at the turn of the century. I know, old age. I was speaking to my editor, and there's an Australian writer called Matthew Riley, who... Oh, yeah. Anyone heard of Matthew Riley?
One of my favorites, yeah. I love that.
So he was doing really well, and I read his book, and I thought, yeah, that's going to be really easy to write. It's not difficult. I'm sure I can make a lot of money by writing those books. So the third book I tried to write was a kind of a very Matthew Riley, it's kind of Indiana Jones amped up to the max type of book. And it was really, really hard to write it. And it's the only time I've ever had to kind of force myself to open my laptop and then and to write it. And it was because it was an effort, it was a really bad book, and it will never ever come out of the bottom drawer. And so this is the way I see things these days. If you're choosing a genre, some people perhaps can do this commercially, but for me, it is a Venn diagram. So on the left-hand side, you've got what do you like to write. On the right-hand side, the circle is what do you think the readers would want to read. And then you find that intersection in the middle, so your enjoyment and a market that fits those books. That's the sweet spot that you should concentrate on. I think that you'll write better books, they'll be better received by readers, and that's hopefully where you'll find the area that you can make your career.
So honestly, if I could write romance, I would. So it's part of the Venn diagram. I don't have that skill set. I have written nonfiction. I've written quite a bit of fiction. I've written a lot of mystery. I've written suspense. To me, that's kind of where my head goes. It's what interests me. If I'm consuming fiction, that's what I'm consuming. So I think our genre sells about second to romance, which is about the best that you can hope for. So I'd probably end up right back where I am because I'm not sure I could actually write anything else and do it well.
That's great.
You know, Wolfpack started out primarily with Westerns. We did a deep dive into our readers 3 years ago. And it was surprising on the classic Westerns, the shoot 'em up Westerns, 40% of our readers were women. We went a little deeper with our dive, and found out the reason they were buying the Westerns was because they were clean. No sex, lots of violence. They had no problem with violence. But these baby boomers, they like, the females like those Westerns for the clean read. We experimented with that and released an adult Western series to the same people, and holy hell did that we catch a crowd.
Thanks, guys. That's great. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. I know there's a lot of questions out there. There's a microphone here. If you want to ask a question, just walk up and talk loud so we can make sure we steal your vocal imprint and record it for all of time. But feel free to come up and ask a question to anyone on the panel. Or me, but I may give you a snarky answer.
Okay, I'll go for that. So you guys have already kind of touched on this, but when you genre hop or do crossovers, do you have separate mailing lists, separate pen names, separate ad campaigns in order to, because you don't want to alienate your readers?
So I don't genre hop too much, but the Milton books are kind of fairly action-heavy thrillers. The Atticus series is a police procedural, so they're definitely distinct, but they're quite close. So that kind of it's not much of a stretch to go from a mystery to a thriller. If I was going to go from mystery to sci-fi or romance, definitely, because actually, I'm doing kids' books as well, so I've got a kids' series coming out next year, and that one I think it is important to have a little bit of a distinction because those markets do not necessarily overlap. And I think if you start sending emails about a romance to a list of thriller writers, you're going to get a lot of unsubscribes, which is obviously not a good thing. So I would keep those separate.
I use a different name for my nonfiction. But everything that's fiction that I write is sort of kind of related, sort of like what Mark said. I write mystery, thriller, suspense. There is definitely a difference in the readership. Mystery is a slower paced story, and some readers have more patience for that and prefer that than thriller, and then suspense is kind of in the middle. But some people have, readers have said to me, I have too much anxiety to read suspense. I don't want to be on the edge of my seat all the time, But what happens after you've written a few books and you get your, your audience, you'll have some who will read everything, and then you'll have some who will only read one thing. And I personally have not figured out any way to fix that. I don't know that separate mailing lists would do it for me. I think separate pen names are good because of issues like metadata, and search engines and things like that. But it's a lot of work to keep 2 pen names going, or 3 or 4, like Elena Johnson does 4, I think. I don't know how she does it. I think she's got a clone, actually, don't you think? But so I, to the extent that you can do one name, it's just a lot easier,
Yes, please.
Thank you for coming, everybody. It's great to hear you talk. I'm mostly doing cozies. I've done other things as well, but I'm working on my first thriller. And what I keep hearing is the word series, series, series. So right now, this is a standalone. Can you address the difference in, it sounds like everything I hear is you guys are going to say, go for a series. Is that correct? Have you found that a standalone works at all? I'm doing this under a completely different pen name. I'll set up the marketing around it, but I'm wondering, is it worth it from a time is money standpoint to actually do something that may wind up being a standalone? Are you asking about the cozies or the thrillers? This is going to be a thriller where I kill everyone. So
there's no one left for a follow-up book.
no, yeah.
That's what I was going to say. The first thing is leave somebody alive, okay? So,
Just need one. You just need one person?
Yeah, no.
So
Good
I
guys
write
and bad
these,
guys.
I write these, this Reacher spinoff, and half the time Lee kills everybody in the book, and that's a real problem for me. So, I have to resurrect them sometimes. I think marketing a standalone is very difficult, and I think it's because your reader doesn't know where to go. They want to read another book similar to the one that they just read that they really liked that you wrote, and where do they go? It's the same problem that you have if you only have one book. They read the book, they love it, and they want to read a second book from you, and you don't have one. And that's really kind of why marketing just one book is a hard thing to do, because you go out there and you find that reader, and then where do they go? So I think most of the advice about writing a series is just basically based on that. It's just the idea that if they like this, they will like that, and then maybe they'll keep going. I mean, that's my understanding.
One of my favorite current authors is a thriller author named Douglas E. Richards. I don't think he's here. He's a good friend of mine, but so he won't get mad at me for saying this. But I've figured out what he's doing. He writes standalone books. A couple of them have follow-ups. But one of them's about an alien cube that lands in the forest in the Amazon, and they try to figure it out, and everybody dies, And then there's another book that's different, I think. I think you meant it to be different. But it's about an alien sphere that falls and crashes, and and everybody dies. But the thing is, and this is why I'm not insulting him, you have to be a very good writer to be able to do that. So you can write that same book, quote unquote, right, over and over again, but you have to be very good at it. Those are standalone, but
So no pressure, no pressure.
the reader knows where to go next. Exactly, no pressure. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Hello. I have two questions. The first one is about word count, and for the authors, do you have a specific word count that you shoot for in thrillers? And then for the publisher, is there a certain word count that you're looking for from writers?
Yeah. With our thrillers, we're looking for 85,000 plus. The men's adventure will go down to 45 to 50,000 words.
Yeah, for me, I'd say the book's as long as it needs to be. So I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb from Mike. Personally, mine are between 75 and 100, the thrillers. But what you will not get, it won't work so well as if you get to, say, 75,000 and you think you need to find another 15,000. The story either needs that or it doesn't. If you try and pad in another 15,000, you're going to get flabby bits that readers won't like. So I think have that as a kind of a rule of thumb, but don't feel that it's something you have to religiously follow.
Again, it's nice being at the end because I can just say ditto, right? So I agree with them. But I would say this, there are some marketing issues to take into account when you're making your decisions about what length you want to write, if you have choices. And one thing we were discussing earlier today is just things like how long can the print book be and put it in large print, for example. There's limits to that. And so like I have a book that's 110,000 words and it's too long for large print, so I can't make it available in large print. They can't put the binding, it would have to be 2 books. So there's things like that to think about. But I typically, for my thrillers, I aim for 75,000. Most of them come out between 75 and 85. That gives me around about 400 pages in a print book. And readers seem to be happy with that. But I also write novellas, and I have some shorter things, and I market those in the thriller genre too. So it just depends. You can write a short book or a long book, but To me, there are some limitations on the high end. I think for POD print, the highest number of pages you can do is 800, which sounds like a lot, but like if you're going to do an omnibus edition or something like that, you know, you just, so that would be my other thing. Think about the practicalities of it.
No, that's great. I was asking because Craig Martelle mentioned that he shoots for around 60,000 words, which obviously is a quicker job. Second question on setting. I know, like in Mark, your John Milton's a bit of a globetrotter. Do you go to all the locations you're going to use for your books, or do you rely on Google and your imagination?
I've traveled a bit, so a lot of them I will have visited. There are some places. The second Milton book is set in Juarez in Mexico, and when I wrote it, it was like the most murderous city in the world, so I didn't go there. But weirdly, Google had sent their little kind of white camera cars, and so I was able to kind of research it like that. I set another one in Pyongyang in North Korea. Obviously, I can't go there, so if I can, I'll travel. But the internet has made it so easy these days to kind of imbue your books with that feeling of authenticity without necessarily having to have gone there.
Thank you.
I asked James Rollins that same question at a book signing a long time ago, and he said, you know, it's funny, I just open Google Maps and find a Starbucks on the corner of where my bad guys or good guys are running around, and I've had readers come up and say, I know you've been there and visited it because I've been to that Starbucks. Take that for what you will.
Hi. So I'm wondering, once you became indie published, maybe more of a question for Mark, but how long did it take to establish a following and start making money?
So my first indie book was called The Black Mile. That was the one set in Soho during the Blitz. It took me about 2 years to write that, which is glacially slow for me these days. But it didn't. It was, I think it's a good book, but it didn't sell very well. I then wrote a follow-up to that, which again didn't sell very well. It was only when I decided that I wanted to do the Milton series is when things took off. And so I think, I'm going to say, I always get these dates wrong, but I think the first Milton was like 2013, and then 2014 I'd had 2 or 3, and that January of that year I made the same amount of money from my publishing as I was from watching pornography as a lawyer, which was so. But I said to my wife at the time, like, I've made the same amount of money this month. When do you think it would be a good idea to leave? And I think we decided if I could match that for 6 months, then we'd think about leaving. And at that point, the next month I made twice as much. The next month I made twice as much. By the end of, say, the end of the summer, I think I was pulling in 30 or 40,000 a month, and it was kind of like, I probably can leave now, but yeah. So it was probably about 2 to 2.5 years since I started publishing that it really kind of took off.
I'm so short. Okay, can you hear me?
You can pull it down.
Can I move it?
Yep,
I don't want to mess it up. So as a reader, I love mystery thrillers. When I started publishing, it was in contemporary romance, because as you said, Mark, that's where the money is. And I've since transitioned to romantic suspense. But I find myself, as I'm writing, unable to stop, because it is this fast-paced kind of a style. So do you have any advice in terms of your process and how you write? Because these 20-hour binge writing sessions are not going to sustain very long for me.
I would say, try to stop somewhere where you feel really excited. So if you get to, say, maybe 20 hours, I don't know how you manage that, but maybe say you've done a 5 or 6 hour stint and you've written 5,000 or 6,000 words. A really good tip is to stop when you want to continue, because it makes it easier to start again the next day, because you want to jump straight back into that bit that was really exciting. But in terms of writing those kinds of marathon sessions, I don't know how you do it. I don't have the stamina for that. So, but yeah, I think I'm probably also just kind of rationing it yourself, because I think if you start doing those really long sessions again and again, you're going to burn out really quickly. So it's probably best to put the brakes on a bit.
Thank you.
I was talking about this today with someone else, and we were talking about how you can very easily get into what I consider to be a trap of never taking a minute off. You can work 24/7 in this business. You really can. And so a few years ago, I actually made myself a schedule. So every day at 5 o'clock, my dog has a fit to eat, okay? So I go and feed the dog and take her for a walk, and then I work for 1 more hour till 6:15, and then I quit for the night. And like Mark, I try to stop at a place where I'm going to start again. But I need a break, you know, and you find if you do this a lot, I'm a Kim, I couldn't write 20 hours if I tried, but if you do that a lot, you're going to burn out pretty quick. So I would suggest that you kind of figure out a schedule for yourself that works. And, this is a job, so like if your employer made you work 20 hours in a row, I don't think you'd be too happy about that, right? Maybe you should, file a grievance.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have probably one more question. Time for one more question.
Hi, I'm wondering, do you follow trends with movies in Hollywood and streaming services to try to keep your characters or your plot sort of, what's in fashion of what people are watching? Do you think that makes a difference with your readers?
Do you follow current trends in Hollywood, movies, things like that? And does that translate through to your books?
I don't. I wouldn't do that. I think you got to write the story that you want to write. I think, this storytelling, as I said earlier, I don't think it's changed all that much. I suppose if you want to look at box office over the last couple of years, we'd all be writing superhero movies or superhero books, but that's not what I do. So, no, I wouldn't. Also, another thing, before I did this full time, I worked at the equivalent of the MPAA in the UK. So I used to watch, apart from the pornography that I mentioned, I used to watch 300 to 350 films every year. So, and I think it is possible. Going and seeing movies and things is a really good idea, but just to kind of seep in the beats of storytelling and dialogue and how storytelling it works. The tropes work across all mediums, and I think it wouldn't serve us to follow them slavishly, but you can get best practice from all kinds of different ways that stories are told.
I think that's kind of a self-defeating thing to do, because for one thing, first of all, I consume a lot of fiction. I see a lot of films, and I'm really sort of into it, so I like it. But, those films that we're seeing now, they've been in development and production for years. So those ideas are really quite old. We're seeing them as if they're fresh, but they're really not. They were somebody's idea 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. So that's one thing. Another thing is, if it really is great, I would feel like I'm not sure I could actually do that, So I don't want to come up short measured against something like that. And also it goes back to the idea of, if I could write romance, I would. I write the best book that I can write. And tell the best story that I can tell. I don't actually know if I could do that or not. I haven't tried. But, I think it's a hard thing to do. Maybe you can do it. I know people who do tie-in books, for example. Something like Bridgerton, when that came out, it was a huge tie-in market. People were writing all kinds of tie-in books, and that was working out well. It's just not something I could do, and so I haven't chased trends like that. But I don't chase trends in the book market either, and it can be very lucrative. A lot of people do it, and it works out really well. So if it's something you want to do and you think it would be interesting and you feel like you can do it, I don't see any reason not to do that. But personally, it's not something I do.
Well, thank you all for being here. I want to thank our panel. The best thing you can do is buy all of their books, their entire catalog. Just get right now, just buy directly from them if you can, but if you have to, go to Amazon. Buy them a drink at the bar later, and can you help me give them a round of applause by being here? Thank you.